war, starvation, politics, pride, domination, biology, indoctrination, conspiracy, racism, anti-Semitism, dehumanization, violence, fear, murder. What do these words have in common? Even though the gas chambers are considered the cruelest weapon used by the Nazis during World War II, propaganda was the driving force to construct the ideology that would dehumanize the Nazi main target, the Jews. This weapon was used to manipulate masses to follow racist ideas that culminated in the Nazi final solution for the Jewish problem, which was the total extermination of the Jewish people. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, propaganda is information or ideas that are spread by an organized group or government to influence people's opinions, especially by not giving all the facts or by secretly emphasizing only one way of looking at the facts. Nazi propaganda influenced German children, manipulated German citizens, and deceived the entire world. From this weapon, accurate shots were fired towards the main Nazi targets, dehumanization of Jews and the creation of a blinded nationalism. But where this ingenious and captious plan started? How was Hitler able to dehumanize the Jews by using propaganda? These questions cannot be answered without mentioning two Nazi men that worked behind the scenes to make this spectacle of horror happen, Alfred Rosenberg and Joseph Goebbels. Alfred Rosenberg's ideas were the foundation of Nazi ideology. His ideas can be found in his most famous book, Der Myth des 20. Jahrhunderts, in English, The Myth of the 20th Century. The detailed analysis of Rosenberger's doctrine will show that his racist anthropology grounds both the belief in the German privilege and the dehumanization of Jews. Rosenberg gave rise to the degraded image of Jews as parasites, a dehumanized species of people without soul and without nation who would take advantage of the people from the countries where they settled. On the other hand, he created a mystic image of German people as a superior race of descendant of Nordic gods. This race was named Aryans under the Hinduist beliefs and the French aristocrat and novelist Arthur de Gobineau's work, which created a scientific racist theory of the master race of Aryans. The images of Jews contrasted with the image of the Aryans, were adopted by the nationalist German party and disseminated by the Nazi propaganda. The anti-Semitic Paul Joseph Goebbels was Reich Minister of Propaganda during the Nazi command of German from 1933 to 1945. He was the brain behind the Nazi strategies to propagate hate against Jews and pride of being Aryan by bloodline. He was not only responsible for the Nazi graphic propaganda but also made films, helped Hitler to rehearse his speeches, and create an arsenal of audiovisual appeals, such as the Nazi symbolism, parades, and songs. Goebbels' expertise in this field helped Hitler to develop a project of integrated communication to brainwash the masses with an ideology that both of them naturally believed.
Goebbels asked, "Do you want total war?" And we warned yes.
Hitler was a huge advocate of propaganda and so was Joseph Goebbels, his right-hand man. He spoke out to the people of Germany and they listened. He promoted Hitler and hatred of the Jews and they followed. Goebbels promoted the views that all of Germany should be Aryan, blonde hair, blue eyes, etc. And this led to a lot of propagandist posters that aimed at recruits for the Nazi party and also the disgust of others who did not fall under these characteristics. The Nazis used as many deceptive strategies as they could to propagate their ideologies. The first target of Nazi propaganda was the German children and youth with the intention of creating an ideological army for the future German generations. They aimed to keep the Nazi ideas alive, no matter what could happen.
I had accepted the ideology, I had accepted what was being taught in school in racial science.
They used several strategies towards children to indoctrinate their innocent brains. Ideological material was inserted to help professors in the Nazification of the students. Textbooks were also used to indoctrinate children during their learning process. Children also must worship the Nazi Party and Hitler, by singing songs, or saying pledges. The evolution theory proposed by Darwin, played a vital role in German schools, during that time. Children's heads were precisely measured their racial purity. The Nazi used biology to emphasize their ideology and reaffirm the Nordic descendants as a superior race while dehumanizing Jews. The Nazi parades would amaze the children when they passed through the German cities displaying appealing colors, music, and choreography. However, the infamous table games, storybooks, and children's cartoons dehumanized the Jews and promoted symbols of the totalitarian Nazi state. The poison mushroom was full of anti-Semitic drawings. Cartoons were also created for children portraying themes such as a peaceful forest with happy animals living in harmony until a stereotyped Jew came to steal the gold from the Golden Three, or sometimes much more eugenic and cruel like the one called about Renard the Fox where Jews are the undesirable rhinos.
He called us his youth.
The Hitler youth camps used to promote the Aryan ideology to youth German from 10 years old up. This strategy collaborated with the Jews' dehumanization and prepared the German youth to become cold killers and anti-Semites. The feeling of importance rose among those young people with Hitler's speeches for the Hitler Jugend. The young soldiers' repetition of the praise written by Baldur von Schirach, the leader of the Hitler Youth before every meal, provided the growth of a belief that young Germans were part of something unique and essential for society Germany.
Hitler said, "We will be one people, one nation. And you, my youth, you are going to be that people and that nation."
Nazi propaganda also bombed German people from every side by using propaganda tools during World War II. The use of strategies such as symbology, body language, and spectacle were widely used tools to manipulate Germans, brainwashing them to follow the Nazi ideology. Symbolism was a Nazi weapon to manipulate masses subliminally. The design of Nazi symbols, the color of the flags, and the uniforms were used to subjugate people while empowered the Nazis. Both events and parades, as well as film productions, emphasized Nazi power and supposed Aryan superiority. Their symbology was inspired, not to say stolen, from other cultures because the Nazis admired the ancient Hinduism. It is not difficult to find some points of similarity between ancient Hinduist thoughts and the Nazi ideology. As an example, the following excerpt from the Rig Veda shows: Indra in battles helps his Aryan worshipper, he who hath 100 helps at hand in every fray, in frays that win the light of heaven. Plaguing the lawless he gave up to Manu's seed the dusky skin, blazing, twir, he burns each covetous man away, he burns the tyrannous away. The swastika is an example of a symbol that was appropriated from the Hindu culture. According to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, the word derives from the Sanskrit svastika, which means good fortune or well-being. Closely identified with Aryan civilization in India, referring to Indo-European settlers as opposed to the indigenous population. This symbol is worldwidely known as the Nazi symbol, even though the Nazis have not created it. The swastika was used to represent the racial superiority of the Nordic people, which Nazi ideology associated with the Hindu concept of Aryans. That meant to intimidate people with the idea of white supremacy. The main colors of Nazi propaganda are red, black, and white. The use of these colors can be related to several meanings, but there are some psychological implicit meanings that we can say that help to institute the Nazi supremacy. Red means energy and immediately gets people's attention because of its strong and powerful energy that motivates us to take action. This color was the most used color by the Nazis. They knew the meaning that fulfilled their purpose of calling German citizens to take action to fight on the Nazi side against Jews. Black is the color of power. This is an incredibly strong and intimidating color that exudes authority and makes us feel secure and protected. This color was also widely used, first for the Nazi principal symbol, the swastika, which made every people feel intimidated by their power and Aryan blood descendants feel protected and secure under their control. White symbolizes purity and perfection. This was the color that symbolized the blood purity and the ideal of perfection that Nazis were aiming through their ideology. The Nazi flag was designed for Hitler consciously thinking about the concepts behind the colors, as we can see in the following quotation extracted from the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. In red, we see the social idea of the movement, in white the nationalistic idea, in the swastika the mission of the struggle for the victory of the Aryan man. Hitler's body language was precisely rehearsed and mentored by his Minister of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, to impact the masses and convince them about his ideas.
Wie eine gute Propaganda ohne eine gute Regierung.
The nonverbal language can combine to repeat, modify, or contradict the people's verbal communication. Kinesics is the science that studies the use of nonverbal language, which comprises the movements of hands, arm, body, and face. Kinesics means movement. By studying kinesics, it is easier to understand why Hitler and Goebbels used to rehearse the movements before a speech. The gestures and body movements used by the German Führer seem to be more emblematic than illustrators, as shown in the recently released pictures from 1025 where he was rehearsing his body language in front of the mirror. Heinrich Hoffmann was the photographer he hired to register the positions, so he could review it before using it. The pictures were printed eventually in 1955 only because the photographer ignored Hitler's order to destroy them. Nonverbal communication is a competence that can be studied to manipulate people's behavior strategically, and Hitler was aware of the body language power. One interesting standing posture involves putting our hands on our hips and is a nonverbal cue that we use subconsciously to make us look bigger and show assertiveness. When the elbows are pointed out, this prevents others from getting past us as easily and is a sign of attempted dominance or a gesture that says we're ready for action. Another important strategy of Nazi propaganda, used for manipulating the Germans, was the spectacular parades, the Nazi synchronized salute, and the torches and fires. They filmed everything, to propagate their ideology and impact masses through this symbolism. The Nazis used torchlight as part of their spectacle to manipulate the audience emotionally. On January 30th of 1933, the torchlight parades announced the rise of the Nazi regime and Hitler was received as Chancellor of Germany. The most meaningful use of this feature was the human swastika formed by a choreographed march that was recorded for the film Triumph of the Will in 1934. The ritual of the Olympic torch was reintroduced during the Berlin Olympics in 1936 as a strategy of connecting the Nazi racist ideology with ancient civilizations. The Nazi Party instituted a particular way to greet each other, which was standing the arm while saying Heil Hitler. The choreographed masses used to repeat this symbol in creating a hypnotic image. Fortunately, not all Germans were hypnotized. In this scenery, they produced the Jews to act as happy people and organized orchestra concerts and other cultural activities to show that they were treating the Jews with respect. Unfortunately, this lie caused the death of 1,000 Jews, before the world realizes that it was untrue. Jews did not have common physical characteristics. There were Jews with blue eyes, and blonde hair, features which, the Nazis claimed to be Aryan. However, they did not take it to account. When the person was a Jew, they attributed to them a status of non-human, no matter their color of skin, eyes, or hair. The distorted and dehumanized image of Jews was the most substantial element of Jewish propaganda. The Nazi conspiracy about the superiority of the Aryans manipulated masses to blindly follow an ideology based on a mix of beliefs and theories that were dangerous and utterly destructive. The importance of studying Nazi propaganda is to be aware of harmful strategies of communication that still be used to deceive masses nowadays. By looking at the past, we can avoid new genocides in the future. Propaganda is a truly terrible weapon in the hands of an expert. Unfortunately, this was spoken in 1924 for Adolf Hitler and became a sad prophecy fulfilled by himself.